Ready? Go! Yay! Go get mama.
We got a miracle phone call and had to make a quick decision whether it was yes or no.
The reason why we got the phone call and we're given the opportunity to take this child is because it is a blood relative of Vanessa's, and relatives are always the first people on the list to get a phone call when a child is put into the system. So that was really the only way that we got the opportunity to become his guardian, and so she is his relative caregiver at this point. And so far, at this stage in the game, we've been fighting for about 1.5 years to adopt him.
Well, I think most people would appreciate the fact that this case involves a relative of the child. Unlike the Gill case and unlike the Key West case, the person seeking to adopt in this case was a blood relative of the child. The family supported the child being adopted by another family member. She had been the caregiver of this child since the child was born. And yet, the government decided because she was a lesbian, the child could not stay within the child's family with this woman.
Florida Statute 63042 specifically mentions that no eligible person may adopt if that person is a homosexual. So that ban on gays and lesbians from adopting is the only categorical ban in the adoption statute. So someone could apply to adopt who is, let's say, a murderer. That person probably wouldn't get approved, but that person could file an application, that person would be considered on his or her merits, and that person probably would be denied after the evaluative process that happens in every single adoption. So the fact that a person couldn't even apply to adopt, couldn't even submit that application without it being summarily rejected if he or she checked off that he or she is homosexual or perhaps bisexual is a problem.
I started going through the documents and discovered that it asks you if you're gay.
There is an actual box that you have to check, and it says, are you a homosexual, yes or no? Are you bisexual, yes or no?
Yeah, and I think I probably stared at that document for a couple days.
She had the entire booklet, which is thick, filled out, and she left that question blank because it weighed on her so heavily, you know, whether or not to lie, and she just obviously couldn't lie about it. And
I carried it around with me for, I'd say, weeks, maybe. And that's when we decided that we better contact an attorney.
Yeah.
And check the box, yes, because we said, you know, we can't start this family out with a lie, and you know, we have to do the right thing for us and our family.
The government did not want to approve her to adopt the child. They wanted her to become a permanent guardian because there's no ban in Florida on gays and lesbians becoming permanent guardians, any more than there is a ban on them becoming foster parents. She didn't find that acceptable.
Anything that belongs to me, he wouldn't legally be my child, therefore he has no rights to it. And of course we all know that you can't get married in the state of Florida, so neither would Melanie. And the best possible option would be to get Ethan adopted, and if something were to happen to me, or eventually, you know, also second parent adoption as well, and if something were to happen to Melanie, he has those rights to collect.
Yeah, I mean, and at this point, I mean, the only thing that they were offering is permanent guardianship to Vanessa and not even to me. And throughout this process, we've talked to a couple of psychologists, and now I realize how psychologically it affects a child when they only have a permanent guardian versus being adopted.
When children grow up in situations in which they do not feel that they belong, when they are given messages by society that they do not belong, this can have an adverse effect on their development. It interferes with the ability of the parent and the child to form that secure attachment. When we don't have permanence in terms of a biological parent-child relationship or even an adoptive parent-child relationship, this also can create insecurities in terms of the bonding process between the parent and the child, because they're wondering, each of them, whether or not this relationship could terminate at some point.
Come on. Yay!
Vanessa and Melanie are two fantastic mothers. They're adorable, they're genuine, and probably the best thing I could say about them, they're boring suburban moms. We love that.
Yeah, of course, this Mother's Day meant a lot because, I mean, I'm sure he can't comprehend, but she made a card for me and he drew all over the card and we had breakfast together as a family. And
Yeah, it was nice. Our two best friends
made us breakfast.
Yeah. And it was a very nice Mother's Day.
Yeah. However, when you have two mommies, no one can relax on Mother's Day, so.
Yeah, I think that's a little problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something they can argue about.
Sometimes, sort of like the Reekers thing, a bad thing happens that ends up being, a real good thing. And while you don't ever wish humiliation on your clients, of course, sometimes people's tactics become exposed, and it ends up shining a light on again, their desperation and their need to prove up lies by any means necessary.
I believe that it's Florida Family Policy Council that published the picture of us that
A newsletter with a mullet, a picture of a couple with mullets, and represented this article as if it was our story. It had our names and it told our entire story, but with a picture that wasn't us. And thank God for someone like Scott Maxwell with the Orlando Sentinel, who he's the one who brought it to our attention and published countless articles and blogs after that, and brought it to everybody else's attention and published our picture stating this is the real couple.
The fact that they can't show a photo of Vanessa and Melanie and who they are, and they've got to show this other sort of cartoonish image, I think it says more about them than it does about us.
There were 3 grounds in this case that the judge said led him to conclude that this law violated the Florida Constitution. One is a law that has been part of this country's history since before the United States became a country. And that is a constitutional provision in the Florida Constitution that prohibits the legislature for singling out disfavored groups for punishment without the benefit of a judicial trial.
Thankfully, our judge did rule in our favor and did rule that the law is unconstitutional and granted our adoption. And we felt great. We
felt great for 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah,
that's what
exact.
I was going to get to.
It was amazing 30 days, actually.
DCF always has 30 days to appeal whenever a judge makes a ruling like that, and they waited until the 11th hour on the 30th day to appeal our case.
I didn't think that Bill McCollum would look at our case and say, okay, we can win this, because I don't feel like they can. So I don't think they should have appealed it, because I don't think they have a leg to stand on. Plus, they didn't produce any evidence in the trial. Now, at this point, it's just fighting for every single person in the state of Florida to be able to adopt a child. Really for the children at this point, because they're the ones that matter. And they're the ones that are looking for homes, and this is really the only thing that can keep us going, is that there are children that need homes and need a forever loving family, and for them to call them mom and dad and actually mean it. So that's
mom and dad are dad.
Yeah, whoops.